Johnson here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello, Rush Nation, and welcome back to the 5 Yard Rush flagship show. Happy Halloween, happy Monday. Jack's got his best face on, as you can see, for us. So
he's a bit tired.
Costume. So I could have said it was Murph. Murph's coming in his Jack outfit today. So, but Jack's a bit tired. Jack was at the London game again yesterday, and if any of you follow Jack on Twitter, you'll know of his exploits and his trials and tribulations that he goes through. Right? So
we had a good day. We had a few too many as usual, but it's all part of the fun.
As long as it's all done in good fun, mate. I was gutted not to be able to make it, but some things come up personally, and I guess I'm saving myself for Munich, which we've got to face in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, your replacement, Dan, actually built a massive beer snake.
I've seen the pictures.
It was all good fun. That was probably me about 10 years ago, actually, to be fair. So I did have a chuckle to myself.
Good for you. Jack, so Murph's obviously not here. Murph's away with work, so Jack's been kind enough to step in and help us. And we're going to have a look back at week 8 and what took place, what occurred, and what it means from a fantasy perspective. So the first thing we've got on our notes is week 8 surprises. I'm going to say there wasn't a lot of surprises. What we actually saw this week, Jack, was a lot of the chalk and the star names and the big guy players finally delivering. So I don't feel like a lot of them have so far this season. But this week, they all kind of turned up at once.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I mean, Alvin Kamara went absolutely nuts for the Saints, didn't he? Tony Pollard, I mean, I'm a big DFS player, as you know, Dan. Yep. I kind of stayed away from Tony Pollard on DFS because that's kind of what good DFS players normally do. But
Tony Pollard and Don Foreman were the two, weren't they, to avoid?
Yeah, and they both got there. So, I mean, that has been quite a regular occurrence, actually, within DFS circles. It's been the lower sort of price guys that are getting there at running back, and it keeps happening. Tony Pollard again was priced low, considering Zeke was out. Devontae Foreman again, just priced low. It's just, but these guys, like you say, the chalk is hitting a little bit more now. As we're getting into, we're at that halfway stage now, aren't we, in the season? So
yeah.
I think you'd kind of expect that at this stage now. The teams are kind of settling down, getting used to it. And I think a couple of teams got found out yesterday, one being my Giants. I did have that as a bit of a trappy game against the Seahawks. But I think a lot of these teams are going to start getting found out. The Jets were another one as well. So,
yeah, Jets didn't look wonderful. They've got their own woes and issues.
Yes,
going on behind the scenes there at the minute. It needs some looking into. But I mean, you mentioned Tony Pollard. Zeke was out. Tony Pollard took pure advantage of it. Pre-season 50-50 split. 0 running back drafters are all over him. He's been getting 47% of the snaps anyway. 9 snaps per game. It looks like he stepped up. He delivered. He's had more. I think that's why he's had more 50-yard touchdowns than anybody else in the last 3 years or something like that as well.
I generally think that he's a better running back than Zeke now.
Many do, apart from Jerry Jones.
Yeah, well, I've kind of thought that for about a year, to be fair. And I've said it on this podcast before. I've said it on other podcasts. I think Zeke's the prime example of why you don't play running backs in this league. They get worn down very quickly, and they very rarely make it into that second contract if they're a first-round pick. Christian McCaffrey is probably going to be the exception to that, who went nuts yesterday as well. But yeah, I do think it's probably time that they move on from Zeke, because I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I mean, Tony Pollard, like you say, he got there yesterday for fantasy, and he just offers some of them big explosive plays. Like you say, so many 50-yard runs, 50 yards touchdowns, and I was a little bit worried yesterday. I stayed off Pollard, obviously, because of the chalk on DFS, but I also stayed away from him. The one criticism for me with him is until I saw it yesterday, I didn't think he could withstand that kind of a workload. He doesn't seem like that type of back that's built.
The durability type.
Yeah, he doesn't. seem like that type of back to me. But I mean, he proved me wrong yesterday. He went nuts. So I mean, yeah. Jerry Jones can talk up all he wants, and we had this the other week with Dak, didn't we? And it was Cooper Rush, and you can do what you want, mate. Just give the ball to your best players at the end of the day. And Tony Pollard's one of the Cowboys' best players.
The problem they've got is Jerry Jones and the Cowboys organization kind of hamstrung themselves because Zeke's paid in such a way now that he probably isn't going anywhere whether they want him to or not at this stage because nobody's going to pick him up. So barring cutting him, their hands are tied. So they may as well use him if they've got him. But I'd be intrigued to see going forward if them roles change slightly, if we start to see a real 50-50 split, or if Pollard actually starts to take some control.
I think they should, but yeah, that's not me. That's me. I'm not an NFL coach or NFL owner, but that's me personally.
It's easy to say sitting here when your job's not on the line, right?
Sorry?
It's easy to say sitting here when your job's not on the line.
Yeah, most definitely. But for me, on the eye test, Tony Pollard's the guy, and he's certainly the guy I want to own in fantasy.
Okay. You mentioned CMC, another one there that probably for the first real time this year has kind of lived up to the hype. I guess his points per game have been rolling in quite nicely without being exceptional. But yesterday, triple crown, passing touchdown, receiving touchdown, rushing touchdown. I think it was the first time since 2015 or 2005, can't remember exactly. And I think it was only the 10th time it's ever been done, which speaks for itself. I did see that as well. He had over 30 yards rushing, over 30 yards throwing, and over 30 yards receiving since he was the last person to do it in 2018 as well.
He's special. I loved Christian McCaffrey when he came out of college. I didn't really like the landing spot when he actually came out of college. I really wanted him to fall down to the Packers. They were about 10 picks after the Panthers.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been the perfect landing spot for him. But I actually firmly he's in the perfect spot for his ability now with Kyle Shanahan. We know Kyle Shanahan wants to run the ball with the 49ers. That is in their DNA. It's built within their coach to do that. And CMC is the perfect running back for that system. It's a match made in heaven. The Niners looked good yesterday. He did have a couple of fumbles, didn't he, as well yesterday, CMC? He got hit hard at one point, I saw, and the ball popped up in the air. And luckily for them, the Niners, I think it was Ray McLeod, was it? He fell on top of the ball. Yeah, it was Ray McLeod who fell on the top of the ball. So they got away with a few yesterday. But for fantasy, I don't think you could find a more perfect situation for CMC going forward as an owner.
I was going to ask you that because obviously they didn't have Deebo Samuel yesterday, who's a gadget type player, if you will, as well. And I'm sure some of that split would have been crossed between the two. Do you think he'll come back in a few weeks and eat into that a little bit for CMC? You obviously got Elijah Mitchell coming back. Can you see that role changing, or is this McCaffrey's now to kind of get that kind of workload each week?
I think it's McCaffrey's. At the end of the day, you give the ball to your best players, and Kyle Shanahan's not silly, and he knows that CMC is one of their best players. What I would say in regards to Deebo Samuel is, I think we've seen this when CMC was at the Panthers with Curtis Samuel, who's a similar style gadget player, like a Deebo Samuel. Obviously, I would say Deebo Samuel's a better player, but
he is.
With the way they play, they're very similar, and we see CMC thrive with Curtis Samuel. They both had a good couple of years in Carolina together. So I think they can both thrive. I think Deebo Samuel's been a bit of a disappointment this year, fantasy-wise. I don't think he's lived up to like that draft capital that people invested within him. But that could be a number of things with the QB's change at the start, and then Trey Lance getting injured. Now we're back to Jimmy G. Kittle's been getting more involved in that offense as well.
He missed a few early, didn't he? So,
which Jimmy G just loves him. It's just a massive, easy safety valve for Jimmy G. But
I think coming out of this, one of the biggest growers that's going to happen and biggest rises is going to be Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G is going to become a functioning, rosterable, startable QB because of Christian McCaffrey. He's going to buy him enough time to look at the field a bit better, not have to panic throw. And if he needs to take a dump off, he's got Christian McCaffrey sat there to dump it to, who will get yards after the catch.
Yeah, most of it. Look, I never thought that he was a bad quarterback, Jimmy G, ever. He's I wouldn't say he's elite. He's a serviceable quarterback. And there was times last year when all these trade rumors were flying around, And well, you know my opinions on Daniel Jones half the
Yep.
time. Granted, he's made me eat some cake this year because he has been playing a lot better. But I was all in on the Giants. Just go and get Jimmy G. I'll give him a second round pick. Just go and get Jimmy G. I'd quite happy to have that. But obviously, things have changed with the Giants a little bit now. You know, Daniel Jones has proven me wrong a little bit, but I think Jimmy G is a serviceable quarterback, and I kind of think that's all the Niners need if they're going to try and make a playoff run. And you know, they've got a fantastic weapon now in CMC. That's for sure. Literally, if you own him in fantasy, I would be very excited for the rest of the year.
Well, I've been looking at a few of my redraft leagues that are kind of on that bubble, just outside that bubble of playoffs now, halfway through, and kind of seeing if I can change a quarterback and get Jimmy G and something else back that's going to be serviceable somewhere else. If I can get rid of I don't know, who might you have now that's Tom Brady's not particularly overly doing well. You've got Derek Carr, a dreadful week, which we'll get onto, I'm sure. But these guys out here that you would class, I guess, as a level above Jimmy G, if you can trade him and pick up something else that's going to be useful, at least a decent flex position to try and add to you in a redraft league is something I've been looking at trying to do. Because I think his performance and production will be decent. So, I mentioned Derek Carr there. We spoke about a few that have really delivered this weekend. Derek Carr is somebody who, didn't turn up. They only didn't deliver. I don't think he even turned up. So, what are your thoughts on that? Is there any particular reason you've saw? How can it be possible to have the players he's got? I mean, I know there was no Darren Waller. I know Devontae Adams was limited, but still.
I think I said this to you on another podcast. I can't remember
Possibly
about Derek Carr, and I didn't think he was good enough. And I say that in a way because I just look at the division that the Raiders play in. That's the first thing I look at.
Yep.
You've got to be able to put up points against the Chargers and the Chiefs. I don't think Derek Carr can do that.
Nope.
Not on a regular basis, anyway. Even though he's kind of not really got an excuse because the Raiders have surrounded him with weapons now. He's got Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. Obviously, Darren Waller was out yesterday, like you said. We've got Josh Jacobs there, who's having a career year this year.
Yep.
I think it's a number of things. I think there's a mentality. I might be wrong on this. I think there's a mentality with players that go to Vegas, and it's like the mentality when the players used to go to Miami. Do you know what I mean? So they'd go there
retirement home. Florida's
retirement home.
Yeah,
I think there's a bit of a mentality like that there, and I think they're terribly coached. And I saw I agree with that. As you mentioned, yes, I was at Wembley yesterday.
Yep.
Hackett drives me insane. I think he's such a negative coach. I've seen enough of that at the Giants for the last 5 years before Dable, obviously. And I see the same thing with the Raiders. I think McDaniels is he might be a very good offensive coordinator, but I think he's a very, very poor head coach. And we've seen it before. He was at Denver before, losing record there. And it's just going the same way. There's no excuse. The Raiders have got weapons. There's no excuse.
Yeah, you can say Devontae Adams limited while I was out. They did have Josh Jacobs. They did have Matt Collins, Hunter Renfrow, who Matt Collins in particular has had a career year for himself. So he has delivered in these games.
Foster Moreau is another one. You know, he's a serviceable tight end when he comes in, Foster Moreau. So there's no excuse for me for that, especially for what they've done yesterday against the Saints defense that's really, really beat up at the minute as well. So there was no excuse for that result yesterday from me.
So is there anything in fantasy you're looking to do with these Raiders players? Derek Carr, 1 QB is probably droppable now, especially with the rise of people like Jimmy G.
Yeah, no, I think you can.
That's a perfect trade for me. Derek Carr for Jimmy G and pick up one of these non-running back, Khalil Herbert type player chucked in as well.
I think you could drop them. I would be looking to sell Devontae Adams. I say that because they've got so many weapons. I think the ball just gets spread about a hell of a lot. So if I had Devontae Adams and I could sell him for, I don't know, I don't go out there and sell him cheaply, obviously. Yep. But if I can flip him for another wide receiver, I don't know. I was going to say Mike Williams, but Mike Williams is out injured now as well. So but someone like that, I'd just flip him for someone. Maybe I don't know. You could go to. I was going to say Nuke as well, but I don't.
A Devonta Smith or a Jalen Waddle, perhaps.
Yeah, I think
they're going with it, but
even a Waddle would be hard. I think, but
these redraft leagues where you're on the bubble, two pieces. Look at the bigger picture. If you can get something serviceable with them, you've got to look at that right now.
Yeah, and I've certainly, if I would be flipping Darren Waller, I mean, I just don't know what you do. Like, you don't know what. Like, I don't know what you do with him. I mean, he's been injured quite a lot this season, Darren Waller, already. So he's not playing a lot. I don't know what you'd flip him for again. The only person that I would still be keeping is Josh Jacobs, because that is the one consistent thing with McDaniels. We've seen that when he was the offensive coordinator in New England. They wanted to run the ball. The Raiders kind of want to run the ball a lot, and it's Josh Jacobs' backfield. I'm not scared of these other guys in that backfield that they've got.
Yeah, you've come a long way since Josh Jacobs starting game 1 of preseason, right?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I mean, obviously that coaching staff didn't fancy him, and then they kind of realised that he's 10 times better than Amir Abdullah and Brandon Bolden at the stage of his career. You know, so maybe he's Amir. Just because of the workload, I would probably go and pick up, like, if you could off waivers in redraft league, I would go and pick up Zamir White and stash him on your bench. Just because of the workload. We know what a heavy workload like that can do to running backs in the league.
Me and Murph speak about it. We're coming to that time of year now where if you're rostering a second QB or a second tight end, your starters probably had their bye now. So these guys are droppable. You don't need a second QB. Or a second tight end if your guy's had his bye and you don't need any cover anymore. Keep the one and go pick up people like Zamir White that could in turn become a real lead flexible position role. So
most definitely. Turn it over. This might be a bit of a hot take, but if I had Darren Waller and then let's say I had let's say I had like a Dalton Schultz, for example, I would drop Darren Waller in redraft leagues. I'd make him someone else's problem.
I don't think I'd drop him. I think that's where I'd be trying to sell him and getting something else for it. I think dropping him might be too much. But you're not going to get a lot for him.
No, if you can get something for him, flip him and do that. But if you can't and you've got a serviceable tight end, I would drop him and make him someone else's problem.
Me too. Another tight end then you said has performed, looking at who you could flip down one for. Andy was in London. Here we go. Double segue. Dulcich had a really good game.
Yes, he did. And I played him in DFS in the showdown captain spot, and I thought he was going to go. I thought he was going to go in for one of them bombs. He caught like a 50-yard bomb down the field. I mean, the dude is super fast. Like he's so fast for a tight end. I mean, Albert Ho is just he's obliterated Albert Ho's value, hasn't he, within any sort of league? So, he's someone you need to go and get. I was lucky enough. I jumped on this Dulcich train early. I got some news about him coming back off IR. The Broncos loved him. They spent a 3rd round pick on him, the Broncos. So they obviously think quite a big deal with him. I knew he was fast. He apparently played wide receiver at college. I didn't know that. And he's converted tight end now into the league. He's electric. He's going to be service. And Russ looks for him constantly. Like, it's not. They are not a pretty offense to watch. I seeing them yesterday in person. I mean, as I say, Hackett. I mean, he has to be fired very, very, very soon. But Dulcich is more than serviceable at the minute. Like you're going to get a lot more out of him than you are other tight ends within fantasy. So certainly, if he's available on waivers, go and pick him up.
He looks like it could be a tight end one, a top 12 tight end for the remainder of the season, which Russ hasn't had since 2017. So if he can keep up the way they were yesterday and he can keep delivering, then that's great. Certainly a player that is under most people's radar still, I guess, especially in redraft because he isn't the name. So go and see if you can find him, add something to it, pick him up off waivers, whatever you need to do, and drop Darren Waller is your key talk there, basically. So.
If you can't sell him, drop. To be honest, I would trade Darren Waller for Dulcich if you could do it. For example, so if you that's kind of where I would do it. I do honestly think you'd be better off making Darren Waller someone else's problem.
Well, see, you can't start him with any confidence each week.
No.
We said about dropping your tight end too, but because of injury problems, you probably can't. And if you have, you've got to pick someone up. Do you drop him then yourself, or do you try and release one of these Zamir White type, Rashad White type guys that could become incredibly valuable pieces in the weeks going forward? As you say, could pose somebody a real problem and probably one you don't need. Give it to someone else, and you probably won't have the the headache of worrying about it. So, Washington yesterday picked up a decent win. Running back there, we had a little bit of uncertainty after Brian Robinson come back from an incredible injury, to be honest with you. We didn't quite know how it's going to pan out, but it seems to be helping Antonio Gibson out, having Brian Robinson back on the field at the minute. Gibson had 7 carries, Robinson had 8. Neither of them did great, but
I think what Antonio Gibson and Robinson, I really like the combo of the pair of them. But I think Gibson being more involved has basically just killed JD McKissick. So if you like still holding on to JD McKissick, just drop him.
He's annoying. I mean, he's still got 5 targets yesterday, which is not enough to be playable, but annoying enough to affect the other's performance.
Yeah, but I put a tweet out yesterday that I said maybe they should get Antonio Gibson involved a little bit more. Yeah. I think he's more to me. I mean, Robinson's done coming back off of this shooting and this injury as quick as he has. Is absolutely amazing. But I do feel he's feeling the effects of it a bit. And Gibson,
no preseason, no stamina training, nothing like that. It's going to take his toll.
Exactly. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying in a year's time that he shouldn't be the lead back on this team, because he could very well be. But at this time at the minute here, for me, Antonio Gibson looks the more explosive of the two. And
if we can pick up 3 of those McKissick targets,
he
can have a good game.
I think Washington should get him the ball more. I think he's been given a bit of a raw deal. I mean, Riviera coming out. I know Gibson's had a couple of fumbling issues. He's not a prolific fumbler of the ball. I know he's had issues. I know there've been a few issues with that, but it's not like he doesn't do it every game. And I know coaches get really annoyed by it, but Riviera seems to just have an agenda against him for it, and it's really, really weird. But for me, Gibson is the one that I want in fantasy for this year.
Yeah, I'd agree. I totally agree.
But it's a mess. I mean, when you're dealing with a 3-man rotation like that, it's horrible for fantasy, really.
And a team who potentially game script isn't going to suit a shared backfield in the slightest either.
But then I would think any game script would suit Gibson more than it would Robinson. So that's what, for me, that's why he's the one. Want. Yeah, that's why I want Gibson.
Fair. Another running back that I guess at the minute is failing to certainly get anywhere near his draft capital is Najee Harris up in Pittsburgh. Another really weird day. He sort of split the backfield a bit with Jaylen Warren, who only had 2 less carries and 3 less targets than Harris. But even on what Harris is getting, he isn't delivering the kind of results and performance you'd expect out of him, especially for where you'd have drafted him.
Yeah. No, so he was a massive avoid for me this offseason, Najee Harris. I just don't. I thought Pittsburgh would be a bad offensive team. I thought they'd be bad at scoring points. I mean, their defense has won them a few games this year, actually. But I wanted no part of it because of those reasons. And even I know it's now sort of gone to a 50-50 split. I believe Najee's got a screw in his foot or something, hasn't he, at the minute?
Is he? Don't know.
So something like that. He's had some operation. Okay. So, I mean, that's obviously going to affect him as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a 50-50 split with Warren, but I don't want to own either of them. And my feelings just have not changed. I felt that way before the season started with Najee. And now it's gone to that 50-50 split as well. I still don't want either of them. But it's not an exciting situation when you got Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky under center. It's not.
The only thing I will say is Warren, for me, is one of those guys that I would be dropping my second QB for if he's about. 29 carries, he's had 7 of them over 10 yards. In comparison to Harris, he's had 108 carries and only 9 of them have been over 10 yards.
Okay, so question to you, Zamir White or Jaylen Warren?
Zamir White, because of the way the team utilises the running back. Without a doubt. Yeah. But you are looking at putting 2 or 3 guys bottom of the roster. You've just mentioned Harris has got something in his foot anyway. Yeah. If there's a problematic back who could go down, Warren's earned himself a start there.
Doesn't get you excited though to play him, does it, each week?
No, it doesn't. But week 14, when Aaron Jones or someone like that is out, he could just sit in a flex and just about do a job if need be.
No, I agree. But I would certainly be prioritising a few others above him, and Zamir White would be one for me.
Zamir White, I think Rashad White's starting to earn himself away into Tampa as well.
These guys would be above Jalen Warren for me.
Yeah, me too. But he is someone, if he is out there, you are struggling, consider. Someone who me and Murph are a big fan of now, Deontay Johnson. Still getting the volume. He had a tough matchup this week. He only missed 4 snaps. He ran a lot of routes on his snaps. Decent level of targets, 9 targets. As you say, it's just the quarterback, I guess, that's throwing the ball that's really starting to affect his production.
Yeah. I mean, to start the year, he had a few drops, didn't he? He had a few drop issues. I think that's obviously affected him fantasy-wise. Like, considering where he was probably drafted quite high. Again, someone I avoided. I just don't want part of bad teams on my fantasy teams. Like, it's a simple sort of process, like, it's to say it really, but I don't like it. I thought Pickens would get a bit of work as well, and like Pickens had a very good start to the season. Fryermuth's actually getting a few targets now as well, so a few more targets. I just thought the Steelers could spread it about a bit. They look better with Pickett under the center than they do Trubisky. That's not hard, but it's nice to see him kind of get into where you drafted him, I suppose, at the start of the year, Deontay Johnson, but not someone that I'd be going out to actively trade for personally.
Redraft, I don't think so. Dynasty, I'm pretty happy. He's still getting the targets. He's still got the production. It just needs to come through. I'm not doing anything with him in that regard right now, but redraft, I'd really like to see a little bit more return on the draft capital spent on him right now. Even though the potential is there every week, it's just every week it's a nearly not quite type situation with him. And I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. Another guy who is so inconsistent right now is Trevor Lawrence. We finally saw a lot of him using Travis Etienne this week, where that old college connection maybe came to the fore a little bit, and he sort of leant back on him quite a lot. I mean, you was there. Was it evident?
Yeah, that kid went nuts. I mean, he went for about 167 yards. He went absolutely nuts. Like,
I mean, they traded James Robinson, and I was one of those going, I'm not sure that was the wisest move at this stage. I haven't quite seen enough from Travis now to make that a decent enough job.
I saw him.
Showed us all wrong. Showed us all up.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I mean, Hasty got worked. I think probably Hasty got about 30 yards as well.
Yeah.
As say DFS player, I really stacked the running backs in that game just because there was a lot of rain. Obviously, Wembley's a grass pitch. It's not that AstroTurf stuff that they play on. So I obviously the damp floor, like damp grass. You want the running backs, and I mean ETN went nuts, and he looked great. Lawrence, I don't know, he just makes some boneheaded moves every now and then, and I do think he'll get better. And I can only go back to what I saw in college with Trevor Lawrence, and I never saw what we're seeing in the NFL. I know the college game's a lot different. He was always a very consistent quarterback at the college level, and one sort of has to wonder how much that Urban Meyer stuff has affected him.
It's killed his confidence, I think. You can see that.
Yeah, I do think it has. I mean, they started hot, the Jags, this year. I thought they were going to be a really good team this year, the Jags. Started really hot. And now they're coming off all these losses. And, you know, they were a bit unlucky against the Giants. I'll be the first to admit that, even though they did injure 3 of our players. I'm not bitter about it at all. But
no, right, obviously. You're doing well with David Sills, wasn't it,
but I wonder how that's affected him. I certainly don't think he's playable in fantasy.
It just seems that there's a QB in there. You can watch a drive or half a drive. He can make 4 or 5 throws, and you sit there and think, this guy is good. And then he'll make one bad decision or one poor execution, and you just see him, his whole body language just slumps and it goes. And it takes him another drive and a half before he gets a nice little couple of throws, and he builds that confidence back up and he goes again.
Yeah.
It's just, he just needs to, I don't know, put it together for a game. And it's almost, you feel for him watching it because he's got it.
Yeah.
He just hasn't got it every attempt.
Outside of Etienne as well, obviously you cannot start Trevor Lawrence in fantasy at the minute.
No.
Outside of Etienne, they're another team. You've got so many options, weapons. I mean, Evan Ingram gets into the end zone yesterday. You've got Dan Arnold still there. I saw Dan Arnold out there a few times yesterday at Wembley. You've got this wide receiver core. The wide receiver core's a mess. I mean, Christian Kirk looked really good at the start of the season.
He did. They paid him. We all wondered why, and he actually showed us why early on.
Yeah, exactly. But he's sort of trending downwards a little bit now. But then you've got Zay Jones there, who's seen an uptake in targets. They actually use Zay Jones a bit of in that kind of like Debo role. He gets a lot
was
of
always
gadgets.
Generically a deep threat. That kind of stretch the field well.
At Wembley yesterday, they were certainly trying to use him in like that Debo role, where he's getting a lot of gadget sort of plays. And then Marvin Jones is still there. There's just it's a horrible fantasy situation outside of Travis Etienne now, really.
Yeah, it is. Hopefully they can figure it out. I mean, I have a lot of Zay Jones purely because he was an East Carolina boy, the only one really in the league. So I have a lot of Zay Jones just to follow his career and support him, I guess, in my own little way. But
if you've got Zay Jones in best ball, I think you're fine because I think he can have a couple of explosive games. But
he's also one of those at the minute with injuries and buys that you're sitting in a deep league with sort of free flex spots. He's okay to put in because he's going to get you a standard 5-6 points. He may go off and get a 60-yard touchdown, in which case he's done more than what you put him in there for. So I don't mind sticking him in there that kind of late. So just quickly, I'm going to divert because I've just had some breaking news come up. Roquan Smith is being traded from the Bears to the Ravens. A second and a fifth.
That's a good deal for the Ravens.
Yeah, I think so too. He didn't want to be at the Bears either, so I think they'll take a second and a fifth on that as well because he didn't want to be there.
Be at the Bears.
No. Well, maybe Justin Fields because the only place he'll have a job. If he leaves the organisation, he won't have a job anywhere else. So he's okay right now. Next up on our list then, DJ Moore. Everybody has talked about for ages. Can somebody please get DJ Moore a quarterback? Well, it turns out PJ Walker from the XFL is the quarterback he was after, right?
Right. I played PJ Walker and DJ Moore on DraftKings yesterday. And then it wasn't to start with because I was fuming with PJ Walker. And then he obviously gets that Hail Mary play, DJ Moore. But then DJ Moore makes that big boneheaded decision. And I put this out on Twitter earlier. Yep. It's all very well. It's all very easy for us to attack kickers. And to be fair, I'm one of the worst that do it as well. I've come out and said in the past, I don't see how you can miss a kick in a dome. Like, I really don't. Unless it gets blocked. I don't see how you can miss. But DJ Moore, with one of the biggest boneheaded decisions ever, catches that Hail Mary touchdown. I get it. He's pumped up. Don't take your helmet off. Don't send that PAT 15 yards back further than what it was.
You'd almost liken it to, I don't know, scoring an equaliser in our football, soccer late on. You're on a yellow card already and you take your shirt off. There's absolutely, as a professional in that industry, zero need to do it. You know the rules, you know the repercussions. You gain nothing by doing it. Celebrate some other way.
Exactly. It's such a boneheaded decision and it sent it back, whatever. And just, as I say, it's all very well. It's easy to attack kickers and, I'm guilty of it myself in the past. But the blame goes to DJ Moore on that one for me. But like you say, Dan, he does look back to himself. He looks more relevant now for fantasy. Now he's actually got a competent quarterback.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. I think I was on Twitter or WhatsApp at the time with a few people. And as that throw went in, I went, Walker has just retired Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold in one throw. He has just ended their careers right there. And they've already announced today, haven't they? They've already come out today and announced that PJ Walker will start next Sunday. And why the hell not?
So I own quite a lot of DJ Moore in Dynasty Leagues. So I was wanting the return of Sam Darnold because he looked good with Sam Darnold at the start of last year. So I was wanting that. But now we've seen this has been kind of back-to-back games now where he's had two really good games. So it's good to see for fantasy wise, and it's kind of now you're getting the return on where you drafted him again.
Yep.
But I can't forgive him for taking that helmet off. If I was a Panthers fan, I would be going absolutely nuts. Especially, they would have been like on par. They would have been top of the division.
They'd have been top, and all the division would have been 3 and 5, all 4 teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why are you doing that?
Conspiracy theory here. The Panthers don't want to be top of that division with that roster.
Mate, if someone tells you can make the playoffs, you'll go into the playoffs. Yeah. People say that about the Giants. Like, I had a few people saying that to me yesterday about the Giants. You don't want to be that record. You're too early in your process. Yeah, I want to go to the playoffs. I've had enough of being bottom of the league.
Correct. And they've got an interim manager, interim head coach as well, right? So he's a guy that's fighting for his job. So he ain't going to want to.
And he's doing a damn good job there as well.
He is. Another person in the game we saw, Terrence Marshall. Finally. A lot of fantasy guys have been calling for Terrence Marshall for what feels like, 2 years now, I guess, to be relevant. He now seems to be the clear number 2. Second week, played a high snap percentage. McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson aren't there. He got 9 targets, 4 receptions for 87 yards. I'd like to see more reception off those targets, I guess, but the potential to get 9 targets is there. And if DJ Moore starts to become relevant and getting double teamed, he could have a good year again at the end of the season here.
I think if you're in a deep league at the minute with like deep benches, then yeah, definitely worth a stash. At the minute, I'd find it very hard.
We just talked about Zay Jones. I'm going to chuck him in the same bracket as Zay Jones.
Yeah,
you hit a bye week, you hit injuries, and you need that last flex spot spill. He's someone that's probably going to just about earn you enough points to make it viable. Most
definitely, and for me at the minute, he's probably a really good DFS player as well. Someone like Terrence Marshall, he'd be really cheap on DFS. So yeah, that's I agree with you. He's within that sort of category with the Zay Jones category.
Super, and obviously Dante Foreman delivered. Chuba Hubbard was out. CMC's gone. Backfield almost to himself, and he did not disappoint. I think it was 31.8 PPR points he put up.
I think Chuba's back this week. I saw something before we come on. So, I mean, if he's been dropped for some reason, go and pick him up.
Who, Chuba? You reckon they split again, or do you reckon Dante takes the...
I think Dante Foreman will probably get more of it. It might be 70-30 in his favour, but he's certainly worth picking up, Chuba, because when they both played together that first week after the CMC trade, they both looked electric and pretty good. So
it does seem like one of those situations where Dante will probably start, and if he has a drive and a half and he's not delivering, and Hubbard comes in and he has an awesome drive, they'll run Hubbard. It feels like that kind of situation. Yeah. And that changeover again it could be imminent at any second.
Yeah. Again, you got spare space on your roster, maybe more deeper rosters, like we say, but definitely worth. If he's been dropped, definitely pick him up.
Super. Somebody else we all like to, I guess, have a bad word to say about, but it's getting harder and harder because he is actually delivering at the minute, is old Noodle Arm himself, Tua Tagovailoa down in Miami. He had a monster game against Baltimore week 2, banged up week 3. But he has got, we all kind of said, can he sustain 2 wide receiver ones? And he is. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are both delivering there.
Yeah, I mean, speak for yourself when you want to have a go at him, because I actually really liked Tua when he came out of college. I thought he was a really good quarterback. Yes, he has flaws. I think one of his flaws is he's probably going to get another concussion the way that he goes at people. I actually think that's really dangerous. So if you do own him in fantasy, I'd be really scared.
It's viable. Yeah, viable.
I think if he gets one more concussion this year, it'd be done for the year.
Yeah.
So that does worry me because he just goes head first. He reminds me of Ryan Fitzpatrick, because Ryan Fitzpatrick used to do that a lot, running head first.
But he was a madman. He got away with it.
He most definitely. But like you say, I mean, he's great. You've got him in fantasy. You start him. I don't know if I would. It's just because of the way he runs at people. Like I was saying about the concussions. Yeah. I don't know if he's someone that I'd want to go out and actively try to trade for. That would worry me a little bit because you could just have one.
Yeah, game. You could go all in on buying Tua to make it up a decent season, and it could go horribly wrong. It does feel very boom and busty almost, not only in terms of his individual game performance, but in terms of whether he's actually on the field or not. His next few weeks, he's got some decent matchups. He's got Chicago, Cleveland, bye week, and then Houston. So I wouldn't be looking at that sort of performance dropping off anytime soon.
No, that's a great schedule coming up, like you say. And I mean, the two wide receivers, you just start without hesitation. I mean, I think Gesicki's a bit boom or bust. I know he got in the end zone again. The running back
about being traded as well, isn't there, Mike Gesicki? So we'll see. Let's talk about Mike Gesicki potentially being traded. So
yeah. The running back situation there also seems. I mean, a couple of them running back matchups coming up there are very.
Apparently, they're talking about trying to get Kareem Hunt in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, most starts look good, and then like they just didn't use him at all against the Lions. I mean, it just.
But they went behind early quite a bit, didn't they? So kind of forced their arm a little.
It's a messy situation with the running back room there. Just outside of the two wide receivers, I don't think there's a lot you can trust, like with confidence. I would find it hard. I get why people would want to do it with that schedule coming up, but I would find it very hard to trade for him at the minute too, just because of I've seen the way he runs at people.
And just a quick note on that one while we're on the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill is currently on 961 yards. He's 39 yards off 1,000, and we're not quite yet at the halfway stage of the season. That's some return already, right? And he was somebody in drafts who fell away from that top tier because of the trade to Miami. He's currently sat as a PPR wide receiver 1.
The teams that come up against the Dolphins, this is the problem for them. Both Hill and Waddle are so fast, and it's a matchup nightmare. It's like, who do you cover here? Because we'll stop one burning us, but the other one will burn us. So it's just, what one are you going to cover at the end of the day?
And I did see something earlier that said if he's on 961, he could be on 1961 if all the balls to him hadn't been underthrown. But
yeah,
that's for the tour skeptics to argue out, I guess. So, who's next on my list? The Atlanta Falcons. Again, this NFC South in general is a mess, right? We just talked about the Panthers and how they actually look like they're in adversity and getting better. The Falcons are another weird team. The run game, they are getting heavier and heavier and heavier on it. Pitts only saw 7 targets. Drake London only saw 5 targets. Demier Bird got more than Drake London, crazily, out of nowhere.
I'm going to put this really simple, and this is what I put in my article this week.
Mm-hmm.
Can't start any of these Falcons players with any sort of confidence because last week Mariota threw the ball 13 times in the game.
Yeah, he did.
You can't. I know Pitts has had the blow up game there, but like I don't see how you can start any of them with confidence. If you've got, I'd start Dolchich over Pitts at the minute.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with it. In
redraft, he's almost droppable.
Yes.
Again,
almost,
make it somebody else's problem, like Darren Waller.
He's in the Darren Waller situation again. Make him someone else's problem because
I reckon you can go out there and get a Gerald Everett, a Greg Dulcich, a Pat Freiermuth. All of those you're going to be able to start with a lot more consistency than Kyle Pitts and Darren Waller right now.
Yes, most definitely. Totally agree with you. I can't start anything with confidence on that team.
And I guess that kind of trade, a Waller for a Dulcich, you'd probably get as Amir White chucked in.
Yeah. I mean, if you could get that, if you could do that, or even Pitts, you go pitch for Dulcich and Zamir White or something like that. Yeah, see you later. I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think I would be right now. Obviously. Fine. Even the running back there, though, they're alluding it a lot more. Caleb Huntley saw 16 carries. Tyler Algier saw 14. So that's kind of a split backfield right now.
Cordarrelle Patterson's back next week, I think.
He's available to come back off IR next week. Yeah, whether he comes back and plays, I don't know. But even then, these backs haven't done themselves any harm. Tyler Algier in particular, I think, has looked pretty sound the last 2 weeks. It's more of a workload, but you'd expect Patterson to come in and pick up the bulk of that work.
It is a mess. I couldn't start any of them with confidence. That's what would, I wouldn't even want to roster them. I really like. It's just.
Well, our own Rich Dynasty Island is calling CPAT to the moon.
CPAT. I actually like Patterson when he comes back. To be fair, when Patterson comes back, he's probably the only one that I would trust out of the lot.
Yeah, see, I'm sceptical because although I think we get the bulk of the carries, I think with the way Algier and Huntley have been, I think he might lose the goal line work to one of those. And in a PPR league, he isn't wonderful because they're not throwing the ball to anybody right now.
You don't go away from Patterson on the goal line. He's a monster. The guy's absolutely built like.
There you go. CPAT has the highest success rate in the entire league. I don't know what you're basing that on, Rich. Maybe let us know the highest success of what.
I think Rich is a massive CPAT fan by the sounds.
I know. I'm going to go and check all of my Dynasty Island leagues and start trading CPAT to him for Zamir White.
Zamir White.
No, don't do that, please. We're not in that advice line. So, fine. So don't roster anybody on the Falcons apart from CPAT when he's back.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome.
And obviously, I think Mariota is serviceable in 2 QB leagues. There you go. So.
Yeah, till your main 2 get through their bye week.
Yeah,
and then you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
Talking of running backs, then Chicago Bears, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. We all know. Everybody listening, watching, follows football knows Khalil Herbert is a better back at this stage, and yet Montgomery is still getting work here, and they won't change. Why is that, Jack?
Badly coached again. But another team that are badly coached.
That way.
I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? I mean, again, it's Pollard and Zeke situation again here. You've got the older of the backs. I mean, Montgomery's not old by any stretch of the imagination. No. He's still fairly young himself. But you've got Montgomery there, who's the Zeke role, and then you've got Herbert, who's the Pollard role. But Herbert, like Pollard, looks more explosive. And for me, I think I'd want, again, a situation that I totally avoided in the offseason. Thought the Bears were going to be a bad team, stayed away from them. But for now, I think Herbert's the guy that I'd want to roster and hold.
So they've had very similar workload. So just this week, Monty had twice as many snaps. The carries they split 15 to 16, so almost split. But on the season, 92 carries for Montgomery, 361 yards and 2 scores. Khalil Herbert's had 91 carries, massive drop-off. He's had over 200 yards and over twice the amount of scores.
Yeah. He's the more explosive back. He's the more explosive back of the two. He's the one that you should be wanting to own for me. Certainly go out and try and trade for him. I would certainly be doing that in leagues, in redraft leagues.
It's weird because he's one of those guys on, and we'd always say don't look at projections and so on. He's one of those guys on projections that's still coming up at 5-6 points in PPR leagues each week because he's still dubbed as a backup back. But actually his usage isn't that way. So don't be put off by that. If you're reading it, trust the stats and the numbers of what we're seeing here. So
yeah, it's the same for me with DFS. If I run 20 lineups on a sim, it'll put Herbert at like 2 points projected. And it's just, I have to end up going through, I basically go through every team and just bump up what I think will work and what I don't think will work. So.
I agree. So we mentioned him earlier, Dalton Schultz getting a bit more workload. Dak's back. Schultz is back off an injury himself. So 6 targets, 6 receptions, 74 yards. Someone, again, I'd be happy to add in place of one of the bigger names we mentioned earlier. Certainly someone's trending the right way.
That's favourite target.
Yeah. Irv Smith, another tight end, injured today as well. He's got a high ankle sprain, so he's going to miss some time. So if he's your second tight end, you might want to drop him now or go find someone else or whatever you can do there. Arizona Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins. Don't matter how many games he misses, he walks straight back in there with a touch of class, right?
When he come back for DFS purposes, again, it was on the showdown slate. I went 100% ownership at captain spot on him. I don't care that he's been 6 weeks out. I really don't. It's Nuke Hopkins, and that's what that Cardinals offense has been missing. And again, another team that are badly coached.
Yeah. Rondale Moore had a decent role as well. I mean, it remains to be seen when Hollywood Brown comes back if that lessens off for Rondale Moore again. And Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz still holds, and I don't know if Rich is still listening, we'll have it to hand. I think Zach Ertz is still the most targeted tight end in the red zone this year as well.
No, so, I actually think that's true. Yeah, I still think that's spot on.
Awesome.
Zach Ertz.
Look at that. I got a fact right on this show. Awesome. Who was it the other week that didn't throw the ball at all? The Falcons. We spoke about them just now, right?
Yep.
The Titans this week. 9 total pass attempts. Now, it was Derrick Henry against Houston, and the history will tell us that Derrick Henry can beat Houston on his own, and he doesn't need the other 11 players on the field. But 9 attempts, that's painful if you're rostering those guys now, right?
I think it's been like that all year for me. Like again, I don't have much exposure to the Titans anyway, but it's bad.
Willis coming in hurt it a bit more than Tannehill, I guess.
I don't think it really matters. Obviously, they're not going to throw with Willis as much as they would Tannehill, but I don't think it really matters. This team is Derrick Henry. Just give Derrick Henry the ball. He makes me look like an idiot every year now. I fade him every year because I'm just waiting for this cliff to go, and he makes me look like an idiot every year.
And he's coming into Derrick Henry season where defensive lines and linebackers are starting to get tired. They're starting to get bruised up. And this is where Derrick Henry now really starts to excel. He's had a slow start to the season. He does a lot of seasons, if you look back, barring the odd game here and there. It's now where teams are getting tired and run down, and he will just start running through them now.
I think your trade window for Derrick Henry is gone.
Yep.
If you wanted to try and trade him, you should have done that earlier in the season. It's Hilliard.
You might find someone out there who will take a JT for a Derrick Henry steal and redraft, and I'd be all up for taking Derrick Henry in that deal.
Yeah, I would smash be doing that myself. It's Hilliard's the backup, isn't he?
Dontrell Hilliard. Yeah. He was starting the season really well. He had a couple of
so he started seeing some work yesterday, a bit more again. I would go and pick him up if he's available.
Yeah,
he's another one of them within that Zamir White, Rashad White, and all within that sort of club. I would definitely be going to pick him up because, like the 49ers, the Titans' DNA is to run the ball. They want to run the ball down your throat. Yep. So go and pick him up.
Awesome. Finally, Indianapolis, Sam Ehlinger. Was a fair debut, to be honest with you. Not too much of note, not too much to worry about. The one note we've got on here is to keep an eye on tight end, is it? Carl Granson?
Yeah, I mentioned to you, I think, didn't I? That's about Carl Granson, that he played with Ehlinger in college. So, watch out together for them two. I mean, their tight end room's a bit of a mess anyway for the Colts. So that is...
Yeah, Murray Cox.
I would be doing that in deeper leagues, I think. I don't think that's something I'd be going to do in like your normal sort of 12-team redraft league.
No, I don't
it's probably not worth it for me, but in deeper leagues, most certainly.
Yeah. So week 8 injuries of note. I guess the big one is Cooper Kupp. Ankle injury. McVay blamed himself because he didn't need to be on the field for the play that he actually done it in. But I think he is hopeful he's back against the Bucs next weekend. I'm hoping he isn't. with all my heart, I'm praying because the Bucs need something to go their way right now, and Cooper Kupp not being on the field would be a huge help to them.
Yeah, as a Mark, your DFS guy, told me the other day, death taxes in Cooper Kupp. It's
guaranteed.
It's guaranteed. He's elite, and I hope he's back sooner rather than later. You want to see the best players playing in the league, and I mean he's just elite.
He can come back the week after. No problem with that at all. Mind you, I've got a lot of wide receiver heavy teams that I drafted this year that have already lost Chase. They've already lost Debo, and some of them have Cooper Kupp in it as well. And if I lose them 3, I've got nothing. I really have.
You can go and pick up Ben Skronik off waivers if you want. As the that might be.
Well, Van Jefferson's back, so no, I'll pass.
Yeah, I know Van Jefferson's back. Took me up a big fat 0 on DFS.
He did. He'll boom against the Bucs next week. Don't you worry about that. It's a cert. Mark Ingram left the game with a knee injury for the Saints. It didn't matter in the game because it was Alvin Kamara's show. We spoke about that already. But if you've got Mark Ingram, you're probably not going to start him anyway at this stage. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Drop Zamir White.
I'm going to go see what Zamir White's ownership is in redraft in a second. Devontae Parker injured his knee on the first play of the game. Remains to be seen how that is. Christian Watson injured again for the Packers, got a concussion, so keep an eye on how he comes through the protocol.
Concussion this year?
Huh?
Is that his second concussion this year?
It is.
That's a risky one.
Yeah. Irv Smith, we mentioned earlier, high ankle sprains, that'd be a good few weeks. And Richie James got a concussion as well, did he?
Yeah, well, off of his 2 fumbles that cost the Giants that game, I'm not bitter about it at all. But he got a concussion, but he was predominantly just playing on special teams. So
Right.
yeah,
That's really going if you get concussed in special teams, right?
well, yeah, but he did fumble the ball twice, so and cost us the game.
Fair. Other players then that missed week 8. Corey Davis, don't know. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry, are these two ever going to suit up again? I mean, we talked about Brian Robinson, right? Missed 4 games with gunshot wounds, and Michael Thomas has missed a season and a half now with a toe injury.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot in the head more than a body, right?
I don't really think it matters if they do return, though. I think Chris Olave is the alpha wide receiver one on that team.
I think he is. I think actually Chris Olave's production would be incredibly helped by Jarvis Landry more than Michael Thomas. I think that slot receiver underneath guy would really help Chris Olave out a little bit. But again, I don't think there's a big deal with either of them to be had there. Who else? Miss Darren Waller, we spoke about. Don't matter, drop him. Chuba Hubbard, if he comes back, pick him up.
Yep.
James Conner, hit and miss. Benjamin's done okay in his absence. Connor's probably going to come back into the lead role when he does come back, but he's always bound to miss time. Zeke,
you know that when you're drafting him at the end of the day, that's James Conner.
Yeah, of course you do. Zeke's another one who we've always liked him, Ian Murph, because of his durability and his lack of injuries that he has had. He's always been an RB1. Last year was a prime example, based on the fact that he never missed games and everybody other running back did. He's now missing games, so it remains to be seen how long that is, and if he even has a job to come back to. I guess if it's down to Jerry Jones, he will. Tannehill, if he comes back, I reckon he goes back into start after the performance from Malik Willis. There's nothing exceptional there to keep him out. Jahan Dotson, another one's been in and out this season. Deebo Samuel's going to miss, I think it's 3 to 4 weeks. Jamar Chase is going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. Daniel Bellinger, that's a shame because he's started to grow into this season, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Giants really missed him yesterday. He's a fantastic run blocker, Daniel Bellinger, as well. I know that doesn't really help for fantasy, but
2 points help blocking.
It kind of does help for fantasy because if you're a Saquon Barkley owner, it really helps you out. But he's a fantastic little run blocker. You see him work in the receiving game as well. It's such a shame. It was a horrible injury.
It's his eye socket or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know how it wasn't flagged. I really don't know this one. The guy's obviously got his hand in the visor and ripped his eye basically out.
Oh.
I do not know how it was not flagged. But anyway, that's another argument for another day. But he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, I'd say, at least.
Wow. And some players this week that did play, well, despite injury. One of them, Van Jefferson, we mentioned, come back, didn't do nothing. Logan Thomas, very similar. Amon Ra, St. Brown came back, and even in a big high-scoring game, was pretty ineffective in that game, but I'd expect him to pick up his normal sort of return fairly recently. And DK Metcalf, very surprised to see DK Metcalf out there.
Catches a touchdown in the end zone as well, wide open.
He did.
I don't know how you let someone that big wide open, but they did.
No, they did. And, I guess on that, you can probably play him moving forward. I mean, I was hoping he was going to be injured long-term through Munich. Bucks didn't have to play him. Not that I wish injury on anybody, obviously, but Zamir White, to let you know. What do you reckon his ownership is? Redraft on Sleeper.
40%.
11.
Oh, wow. I didn't think it'd be that low. Right, I'm going to go.
That was the most camp I've ever seen you, Jack, in all our time knowing each other. Oh, wow.
It's got me excited then. So I'm just going to go through every league now I can tell you now, I can guarantee that he will not be available in any league that I play in.
Zamir White is 11% owned, 1% started, which is also really concerning.
Yeah, a lot of them have just got to be dead leagues, haven't they? Where people just set them up and they just become dead leagues over
Chuba Hubbard's just over 50%, 56% for Chuba Hubbard. So there's a few out there that have dropped him.
Yep.
Who else did we mention? Rashad White, perhaps at the Bucks, is starting to get a bigger role in there. 47, so he's under 50% owned.
Mentioned Dulcich as well. I don't know what his ownership's at the minute.
Greg Dulcich at the minute is 46, so again less than 50%. Yep. So these guys are out there. Greg Dulcich at 46, and I bet Darren Waller sits at 100, right? 93. Must be dead leagues. This is it. Darren Waller, 93% rostered, 29% started. That tells you the problem with Darren Waller.
drop him, make him someone else's problem.
Yep. Indeed. Jack, anything else you want to run through, cover, discuss? Tell us who you are, where we can find you. I know you're a big regular person on the show, and I doubt there's many listening that don't know you, but please. You got something new come out, actually, didn't you, recently?
New?
Did you have something new? We had a new show.
No. I do my articles. I do my DFS articles.
I swear you had a new show out.
Oh, no. So, yeah. Well, it's
or
not
rebranded.
It's not a rebrand either. We're just basically doing a bit of fun. 3 grumpy blokes. Anyone that knows me knows.
You, Nick, and Mark, probably.
Mark is willing to come on at some point. So,
Okay.
yeah, we'll all be on that together at some point as well. But, yeah, just we talk about sports, like mainly NFL, but, you know, I chucked in a bit of golf. I like a bit of golf as well. We spoke about a bit of rugby as well this week. It was really weird. Just 3 blokes moaning. So you can catch that on my Twitter handle at Jack Humphrey DFS. And all of my DFS work can be found at touchdowntips.com. I have my week 9 article out at the end of the week. Can't believe we're at week 9 already. It's going so fast. I'm going to win the Millie Maker this week, I've decided.
Well, I was just going to say before we do leave, well done, Nick, who, if anyone knows, won the Ashes contest, $1,000 this week. So, well done, Nick. It's nice to see people we know pick up wins like that. Nick plays a lot of DFS and he knows what he's talking about, and it paid its rewards for him this week.
I taught him everything he knows. But yeah, congratulations, Nick. I'm really happy for him.
Awesome, Jack. So thanks for joining me. We're going to sign off, leave it there. I'm sure we'll. Probably speaking about half hour now, me and you. I'll see you soon. So, yeah. Guys, thanks for listening. And hopefully I'll be back with a big man himself next week. And we'll look at week 9. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.